What's up, guys? It's Lefty here, and I got a good one for you. In this video, I'm going to be discussing how I break down games and my overall handicapping process, sort of like a betting guide. Now, boiled down in a summary of my process, it can all fall under three main categories. I refer to these categories as first market analysis, game theory, and then finally confirmation. Now, each of these categories have many moving parts within them. I'll explain the basis of each category, and I'll do my best to go over some of the key factors within each category. Now, I will be releasing a full, in-depth 4-week sports betting course that will cover all the factors within each category in greater detail. This is going to be available in the Betting Network Discord community. Links will be in the description. Now, this course is included as a free bonus in our premium Discord, and it'll basically be an A to Z betting course that dives deeper into the factors within each category of my handicapping process. Now, speaking of my process, there isn't really an order I always follow, but considering all factors is what's important. Now, there's no magic shortcut or one specific factor that's going to just magically turn you into a winning bettor. If it was easy, everyone would do it. In sports betting, like most things in life, you get what you put in. And in my opinion, one of the more flawed approaches or shortcuts I see most bettors do is blindly following someone else's opinion without knowing how they arrived at their opinion. Now, I understand, following picks or buying picks is popular because not everyone has the time to put into handicapping games, or they just assume because someone's selling picks that person knows a lot more about sports betting. I honestly believe you'd be better off flipping a coin to decide who to bet rather than paying someone for their picks. Now, of course, there's probably some people or pick sellers who put in actual work or have a decent model, but I believe the cost of the picks, whatever it is, cancels out the edge they have, even if they do have an edge. But that's really another topic entirely. I actually did a video on that topic. I'm going to link that in the top right corner if you want to check it out. Now, let's get right into it here. I'm going to discuss the three main categories of my process and some of the factors worth considering within those categories. Now, remember, there's many factors within each main category. I can't list them all here. It'd be a 3-hour video, but like I said, the sports betting video course I'll be releasing that I discussed a minute ago, it's going to be more detailed and it will cover, more factors. Now, also, before I forget, if you want an actual checklist to reference this process, simply text the word checklist to the number you see on the screen, and you can download a PDF file for free. It's basically a summary version of my process. And that same text service, you can get free picks that I'm personally betting. Now, the starting point of my process often comes before the betting lines are even available or before the sports books open the lines up. I want to start getting my own unbiased opinion about a game line and what it will be before I actually see what the sports books open their lines up at. This is usually done using like my power ratings or models. Now, the opening line would be the natural starting point for most. From when the line opens up, to where it closes or when the game starts, I refer to this as the life cycle of a betting line. So this would lead into my first step here of my process, and it's market analysis. I usually weigh market analysis for roughly 40% of my overall process. Using a live odds screen, this is what you see on the screen here, can show you many different things. This is just a still screenshot, but it's really a live odds service is a combination of not just public betting percentages, but also how the sports books are reacting to the betting action. These are the charts most of you guys have seen in the Discord, and which a lot of Discord discussion is based around. Knowing where the odds opened up at, where they're currently at, and ultimately where they close is paramount. Equally as important is, what point the odds moved in correlation to the public betting action. We can see this based on these percentages and within the line history. Finding patterns and what I call impact points can allow you to get ahead of line moves. Now, remember, it does us no good if we're analyzing the market and we see an NFL team, say, open at like -4, 4.5, and it moves to -7. We can determine that sharp money or respected bets forced the line move because, 4.5 to the key number of -7 is a significant line move, but betting it at -7 after the books have already adjusted does us no good as the value is likely extracted. Now, being proactive and, beating line moves is the goal of market analysis. We want to be the steam, not chase it. Analyzing the market effectively and efficiently takes time, unfortunately. The market is always changing, and there isn't really a one-size-fits-all solution to every situation. Hopefully, I can help accelerate this process for members of the Discord community. I plan to do weekly live odds streams in there where I discuss games from a market perspective and, going over the finer details of market analysis. If there's one thing in sports betting you can't fake or half-ass, it's market interpretation. It took me years to learn how to interpret the market, and I'm still learning. But, luckily for you guys, I went through all that. So now hopefully you don't have to. And the proof really is in the Betting Network Discord community. There's members now who can read the market at a high level, and they had no clue what a live odds screen even was a year ago. And I'll be doing a lot more videos specifically related to market analysis because it involves so many moving parts. Now, for the next step of my process, we call it game theory. And this typically gets a weight of 40% of my process. So it's 40% market analysis, 40% game theory. I could love a team based on market analysis, but if I can't check off the game theory box, it's a no bet for me. Now, game theory is what most sports bettors have a general understanding of. It's literally everything related to the game itself, the matchup, player and team stats, analytics, advanced metrics, personnel, player talent, what else, like coaching, situational betting, motivation, trends. All these and much more can fall under game theory. And I could list 100 factors here, but a couple important factors that absolutely have to be considered is first, player news or injuries. This is probably injuries in itself or player news is the number one reason for line moves, basically. Betting sports is all about getting the best of the number or price or spread or total. Now, by the time a game starts, injuries are already factored into the betting line. So the goal is to get ahead of this injury news. As bettors, we want to be proactive rather than reactive to information. Some of the best updated injury info can be found on Twitter, actually. There's team writers who report solely on one team or local team reporters, and they often can break news about player statuses way before sites like ESPN or some of the major platforms. Now, injury info is obviously time sensitive, and if you get it quick enough, you can beat some sports books before they adjust the lines. But also with player news, you want to consider what's called derivative markets. And a good example for this would be like, say if LeBron James was ruled out, who's obviously a key player that impacts the point spread, but he also impacts other markets like player props or first half or quarter bets. These derivative markets also are likely to move slower when they're adjusting the lines to injury news compared to like the full game spread. Most sports books will adjust lines quickly, but that's why I always preach about having access to as many betting accounts as possible, because you can catch some books asleep at the wheel and beat them before they adjust the lines. Now we want to beat the ultimate goal is beating the closing line, getting a better price than what the market closes at. And that's a sure way to win long term. And one of those ways is if you can just beat injury news. Now, another important factor you want to be aware of is definitely weather. Playing conditions can influence the betting lines dramatically. But again, this is a time-sensitive factor. It does us no good if we notice a game has 20-mile-per-hour wind gusts like during pregame, a couple minutes before the game, because the odds makers have already adjusted and factored it into the betting line. Looking ahead days in advance can provide you an edge. The recreational bettor, they'll notice the weather the day of the game or in the pregame TV broadcast. The sharp bettor, they're looking ahead, and know the weather days in advance, and they bet accordingly. Now, wind is probably the most important factor because it impacts all phases of the game. You don't want to make a bet solely based on weather or really any single factor, but it's about applying many different factors. A couple examples of this would be, let's say you have a team that plays in a dome, like maybe the Colts, and say they go on the road to play in Jacksonville in the heat, outdoors on grass, maybe it's raining or double-digit winds. This would obviously play against the Colts, or vice versa. A warm weather team like Miami playing in 20-degree weather up in New England in the snow. Like I said, there's 100 factors that fall under game theory, and the more you consider, the better. But really, it's all about, just being in tune with the matchup. When I do videos specifically based on game theory, I'll discuss some metrics I think are important and how to apply them in your research process. Now, finally, the last part of my handicapping process is what I call confirmation. This is the last step in my process. I usually weigh it, its importance to roughly 20% of my overall process. Now, I've been involved in the sports betting industry going on 20 years now. I've held pretty much every job imaginable. I started out as a street bookie when I was roughly 18, 19 years old. This was back when we had to use the pen and pad era, when you had to call in your bets over the phone. This is before bookies had websites to place your bets. Now, I eventually crossed over to the other side of the counter onto the bettors side and into sports information. And have been fortunate enough to create relationships with some of the sharpest minds in sports betting. I call them sources. Now, for sports, I don't follow closely or handicap myself. I will rely on these sources for 100% of my game selection process. I post these source plays in the Betting Network Discord community. For the sports I do handicap, I naturally want to know their opinion on games I'm looking to bet. I want to know if they agree, disagree, or have no opinion. If I have a bet that checks off both market analysis and game theory, but find out, there's sources that strongly disagree with that bet, it's a no bet for me. If they have no opinion, or ideally, if they agree with the bet I have, I'll pull the trigger. It's important that I make this the final step of my process, because as sharp as these sources might be, I don't want someone influencing my opinion when I don't know how they arrived at that opinion. Most of these sources will tell me who they bet only after they bet them for their desired amounts. They're not going to tell me too much about why or how they arrived at their conclusion. That's their edge. I mean, for many of them, it's their livelihood. They protect that regardless of, what I can offer them in return. These sources aren't pick sellers, or, they bet sports for a living, and most of them work in syndicates or betting groups. I have different arrangements with most of these sources. It's a give and take. I wouldn't have access to their information if I wasn't providing them with any value. So, one of the more common arrangements I guess I have in place with these sources is account wrangling. And, every successful sports bettor needs accounts. They're always getting limited, or, they can, a lot of books like boot them, and they just need accounts. It's what fuels their operation. I'm able to provide, most of them with betting accounts. And this is only made possible because of the relationships I've built over the years. Now, in order to be successful in sports betting, you do have to have a network. You have to have the ability to gather sports betting accounts, even if it's just for yourself. Some have partnerships or info sharing arrangements. This is all part of the game. And it can take time to develop these relationships, but it's absolutely necessary to one's success. But it's tough to win on your own without a network. You don't have to know like the sharpest people in the industry, but and there's some successful winning bettors who don't even handicap games. They just have access to very sharp info in a timely manner. And like I always say, sometimes it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And that really can go for anything too, not just in sports betting. But I think I'm going to stop here because that about covers it. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, and you could give this video a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel, that'd be great. Also, make sure to hit the notification bell because got a lot of future videos coming up, so you want to be aware of that, where I'll dive deeper into each category, kind of show you how to apply factors into the game selection process. We have a ton of cool stuff planned, and you can get access to all that in the Betting Network Discord community. Links to join will all be in the description below, and links to our socials and stuff like that. Appreciate everyone who watched to the end, and that is going to do it for me. Until next time, good luck with all your bets, and as always, may all the refs' calls and all the loose balls go your way.